images as Irma made its way across the northern Leeward Islands. Now we've got hurricane watches up for parts of southern Florida, down through the Keys as well. These watches are up, meaning hurricane conditions are possible in the area, and they generally go up about 48 hours before the onset of tropical storm force winds are expected there. The reason why is because once the tropical storm force winds move in, preparation time should be done. It's going to be impossible to get out there and prepare with tropical storm force winds around. There's the projected path here as we move our way through time, moving its way now basically the Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, then eventually working its way towards South Florida late Saturday into our Sunday, and you can still see moving its way up into the southeast, still with a formidable system here that could bring with it some of those gusty, strong winds and also some heavy rain. Well, we'd certainly like to welcome our viewers for watching us on Local Now. You and your loved ones, they can see breaking news on Irma coverage on the Local Now app. All you have to do is change your feed settings to Florida, Georgia, or South Carolina to get the latest and the Weather Channel's expert coverage. All right, let's get to the very latest on Irma. Hurricane watches, again, they're up in South Florida from Jupiter Inlet to Bonita Beach, including the Florida Keys. A state of emergency that has been declared in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Miami evacuation orders, well, they now include 650,000 residents. By Friday, all 7,000 members of the Florida National Guard will be activated. And to underscore Irma's danger, well, the National Weather Service in Miami has stated, quote, locations might be uninhabitable for weeks or months. So far, Irma is blamed for 6 deaths in the Caribbean. All right, let's get you to the very latest on Irma. We bring our hurricane expert, Brian Norcross. And Brian, we watch this thing here continuing to work its way across the Atlantic. Powerful system, and seeing some changes in the models here. But still, we want to reiterate, everyone, East, West Coast, need to be prepared for this thing.
You know, we look at these models, Alex, and we concentrate on those models, and so we can see them. Oh, look, they moved a little bit that way. They moved 50 miles this way. They moved 10 miles that way. And that becomes very concerning. That should not be what concerns us. What should concern us is that the cone is aimed at Florida, and this storm is going through the island. So that's really the issue. In actual fact, the forecast hasn't changed. The forecast is for a big hurricane to come to Florida. Now, this is not Florida. This is, I wanted to go back because we had the computer problems there a moment ago. This is the Turks and Caicos Islands, and obviously the hurricane is heading right through them. We are just very fearful for what's going to happen down there. And here's why. The storm surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center is for the ocean to rise up 15 to 20 feet. Now, not in every part of every island, but there are a lot of harbors down there. And if the wind is pushing the water into the harbor, that's what can happen. Other coastlines are not as subject to it, but some areas have this incredible storm surge threat. And you see the 5 to 10 foot threat in the northwestern Bahamas and all of South Florida. We'll look at that in more detail a little bit coming up. So here we have the 175 mile an hour hurricane with this incredible low pressure. Neither of those numbers sound like bizarre now. They would have any normal time, but because they were even more extreme here yesterday. And now looking at this model once again, I want to go back to what we were talking about and bringing it up here to what the model says is going to happen at 6 a.m. Sunday, bearing in mind, even though this looks like it's coming right across Marathon and just mauling the Keys, especially the upper Keys to the just to the east of Marathon, but we don't know that it's going to be there or there or there or even over here, because that's all within the margin of error, even here and maybe a little bit farther to these. All within the margin of error. So, but what's important is look at the size of the circulation. The circulation here is the size of the state. So if it were to go, like the European is saying today, this circulation covers the state, and the strong winds are coming ashore and pushing water ashore on the east coast, to the right of the system, and behind the system on the left, the west coast. So we have concern for the entire state. So I don't want anybody in the state of Florida to think they're not going to be affected by this storm. This forecast shows you that we can't cut that slice the salami that finely. We just don't know where it's going to go. We just think it is an extreme threat to the state of Florida. Okay, here's I wanted to look at the cone once again because I wanted to go over what the thinking was on the intensity of the storm. The idea is as it comes near Cuba, perhaps a little bit of weakening, and then the indications are in the computer models that two things are going to happen. Once it comes ashore in Florida, of course, we have the friction with the land and everything. That will slow it down a little bit. And also we have some upper level winds here that are going to start to impact it. So they're still showing a Category 4 hurricane for South Florida, but look at this. All the way up in North Florida, it's going to kind of pick it up and lift it quickly up to the northern part of the state. And the thinking is a solid Category 1 hurricane, even in South Georgia. So we're talking the entire state of Florida to receive hurricane force winds, or at least wind gusts. So this is like something we really have never seen. Alex, back to you.
Amazing stuff indeed. Important to note, again, how much impacts will be felt farther inland as well. We do want to head to Central Florida now. Reporter John Zarella joins us live from Cocoa Beach. John, what's the latest?
Hey, Alex. Well, a lot of traffic here on A1A, the main artery in Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, down the road a bit here. Mandatory evacuations for the Barrier Islands go into effect 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So we won't be seeing this traffic here after tomorrow afternoon. That's for sure. You know, a lot of people remember Hurricane Matthew here. It was supposed to make a direct hit, but at the last minute veered off the coast, stayed offshore. The maximum wind gust here was reported at Cape Canaveral at 107. But I have to tell you, one of the places that was impacted was the supermarket, the Winn-Dixie. That Winn-Dixie had its roof blown off during Matthew. They spent about 8 months rebuilding, and they just reopened 2 months ago, and now here we go again. Now, I've noticed gas stations, some of them starting to run out of fuel. There isn't any plywood around on the islands anymore. So people are making their preparations. Today's the day to do it. Tomorrow's the day to do it. And then by Saturday, everything needs to be wrapped up. People who are hunkering down and staying in their homes, and a lot of people have told me that they are, all their preparations need to be done. The question is going to be how many people heed the warnings and actually evacuate and get out of these barrier islands. Alex?
John, I'm sure we'll be checking back with you there in Cocoa Beach. Meanwhile, we do want to focus in on some of the other areas that'll be feeling the impacts from Hurricane Irma. It's not just a South Florida thing, and we're going to be moving its way inland to Central Florida and even beyond. We got a spot like Orlando. Heads up here for you. Sunday morning through Monday morning, we'll be looking at least 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts there. Looks like the strongest of the winds coming in for your latter part of Sunday. That's where the hurricane-force wind gusts will be possible, along with the rainfall issues there. 5 to 8 inches, that'll be possible. So Orlando there for you, really looking for potential power outage issues. So be prepared for that there across at least central portions of Florida. Or Orlando, again, one of those spots. But again, we continue to move our way across, not just there in central Florida, but looking a little bit farther to the east with the rainfall there, 8-9 inches. Titusville towards the Melbourne area, lighter amounts as you slide towards the north and the west. Again, always going to be dependent on where the exact track of Irma heads, but just know heavy rainfall will also be an impact there for you as well. How about in Marathon, Florida? You've got your basically Saturday morning through Sunday afternoon into the evening. That's where we'll be looking for those tropical storm force wind gusts, hurricane force wind gusts. Looks like that time period Saturday late through Sunday morning, up to a foot of rainfall possible, and we could be looking at storm surge getting up to 10 feet. So some big impacts there possible around Marathon. Fort Myers also looking for winds, tropical storm force Saturday afternoon through Monday morning, and then the hurricane force winds Sunday morning looks to be the peak of that, but also heavy rain, 8 inches up to a foot possible there. Well, coming up, we do continue to break down the future track of Hurricane Irma as this dangerous hurricane approaches Florida and the southeast U.S.